Did you know that configuring a set of business IP phones can be as simple as plugging them in? With the auto-provisioning feature in PortaSwitch, you can save time, reduce errors, and scale effortlessly. Let's find out how. To manually provision an entire set of Office IP phones, an administrator needs to log into each phone's web interface to configure its settings, and each office could have dozens or even hundreds of phones. And it gets worse. Not only does the administrator have to do all that labor, they also have to know the IP address of each device. Plus, using the manual method, each IP phone has to be on the same LAN, or local area network, as the administrator, or it has to have a public IP address. If the device is behind a network address translation or firewall, the administrator will not be able to access it. All of that might be fine for a testing environment or a very small IP deployment. But for most business environments, manual provisioning is inefficient and impractical. And that goes triple for any service provider that is managing thousands of devices across the globe. That brings us to auto-provisioning. Auto-provisioning shifts the configuration process from manual intervention to automated retrieval from the provisioning server. Instead of administrators having to access a set of devices directly and individually, each IP phone will initiate periodic contact with PortaSwitch to download the IP phone's configuration. When you use auto-provisioning for an IP phone, instead of entering the same values for codec, server address, and so on into each of 1,000 user agents, you can simply create a single CPE, or Customer Premises Equipment Profile, that describes all of these parameters. Then, PortaSwitch will automatically generate a unique configuration file for each IP phone and store it on the provisioning server. The IP phone only requires one initial setting, the provisioning server's address. Once connected to the internet, the phone retrieves its configuration based on its MAC address, or Media Access Control address, via the TFTP or HTTP protocol, and then adjusts its internal settings accordingly. If you decide to change settings later, say, like the SIP server address, you only need to update the profile once. PortaSwitch automatically rebuilds the configuration files for each device, which will be downloaded the next time the devices come online. Auto-provisioning will work if your IP phone knows the address of the provisioning server managed by PortaSwitch. If you buy the IP phones retail, you will probably have to change the address of the provisioning server on every phone manually. However, if you place a large enough order with a specific vendor, the vendor can pre-configure these settings. That way, you can deliver the IP phones directly to your end user without even unwrapping them. Let's now look at the auto-provisioning process in a bit more detail. Each configuration file is tailored to an individual IP phone and includes details like the username and password. The provisioning process involves 3 steps. First, there's defining a profile. The system uses the profile to include general properties, such as codec preferences, in the configuration file. Next comes adding the device. Each phone is added to the PortaSwitch CPE inventory with its MAC address and is assigned a profile. Finally, there is assigning accounts. The phone or specific ports, for multi-line devices, are linked to a user account in PortaSwitch. The CPE inventory within PortaSwitch allows service providers to keep track of any IP phones that are distributed to customers. The MAC address parameter is essential for every IP phone that needs to be automatically provisioned, and so a corresponding entry must be created in the CPE inventory. Whether you're setting up 5 phones or 5,000, auto-provisioning in PortaSwitch will simplify the process and minimize potential errors. Thanks for watching this episode of Did You Know? If you enjoyed learning about auto-provisioning, give this video a thumbs up, share it with your team, and subscribe to our channel for more tips on optimizing your communication systems. See you next time.